Hey guys, it is good to see everybody on this Friday morning. I'm trying to get this. Here we go. There we go. Now we look like we're in good shape. Yes, good morning, everyone. I've got a list of questions here for us. Facebook is popping up a little thing. Yeah, I got it. Okay. I understand what's going on. Okay, cool. Well, good to see everybody. Let's get rolling here. I've got another list of questions here. Quite a few pages today. So that is good. We'll try to get through them in a good time. So here we go. First question from Gabor Rakz, R-A-C-Z. Sorry if I mispronounced that. That's a cool last name. That'd be make a great .com. How can I determine if it's worth selling other people's products to my audience as opposed to selling my own products exclusively? Good question. Here's some background on it. Our company, Rubicon, is Hungary's fastest growing magazine and the #1 source of history for Hungarians. We're a well-known and trusted brand nationwide, and we've grown a large Shopify store currently selling our subscriptions, past issues of our magazine, and online courses. The idea has crossed my mind that we would become a national retailer of history books by adding historical titles of other publishers to our online store. The company we've partnered with to handle our shipping could easily handle the added inventory and shipping. We would not need to pay for inventory of these books either. The norm in Hungary is to pay monthly or quarterly based on the sales you make to the publisher. The industry standard commission for a book sale is 50%, so that's what we make on each sale. This could be a great way to sell more to our existing audience, but at the same time, I worry we'd be cannibalizing sales of our magazine, where we keep 100% of the revenue. Since these books fulfill the same consumer desire, deeper understanding of Hungarian history, and how would you decide whether or not to expand in this direction? That is a great question. That is an awesome question. So here's my thoughts on that. Okay, so first things first, you have to decide what business you're in. And this goes for anybody who's listening and in a different business. It doesn't matter. This answer applies to everybody. Whenever you see an opportunity to go in a different direction or to add a potential revenue stream, you've got to treat it like it's it's potentially a new business, right? Like, so it's like, is it the same business or is it a new business? Are you selling more to your existing customers, or do you need to now find different customers? In this particular case, it sounds like it would be the same audience. So as far as cannibalizing your other business, maybe if you're constrained by how many audience members you actually have and how many you can generate, then do you want to sell them a product that is only 50% of it? Because you'd have to sell twice as much to make the same amount as you would selling something that you make 100% margin. Yeah, you'd have to look at that. You'd have to do the calculations and say, if I have 1 million subscribers or whatever, and I can convert them at this rate with my magazine, but I can convert them additionally at this rate with these history books, then you just do the math on that and figure it out. I mean, obviously it's based on some assumptions. What I would maybe start with, if there was a possibility of it, is do some A/B testing on the product line. You know, what's worked for me in the past is the whole as seen on TV world works like this. Try to sell a product that you haven't spent any money on yet. Like, you haven't set it all up. Like, just test it, right? And like put some sort of rule in place, like that if nobody, like if not enough people buy it, then we're not going to sell it, or like whatever. So like you can really get a solid A/B test of, is this product going to be sellable to my audience, and at what level of sales will it sell? Sometimes testing stuff before, like testing the market, like as if the product existed, can tell you a lot, and then you don't have to spend a lot of time being concerned if you're making the right decision, or if you're spending too much money on a new product line or whatever. Market testing is important. So, but you're right. Are you gonna sell twice as many? If you actually take out a subscriber who would have normally bought the 100% revenue thing, you have to test it. That's really the only thing you can do. I don't know what the answer to that is in your particular case. Happy to work through that though with you if you want to reach out, and I'll kind of maybe outline a game plan. So yeah, cool, good question. And that goes for anybody. Remember that. And don't get distracted. That's another thing. A lot of times we look at opportunities and we get confused by opportunities versus the shiny objects that sometimes distract us. So really know who you want to be, and where you want your company to go. Like, do you want to be the history channel of Hungary? Like where you're all things history? Then maybe that makes sense, like because of the bigger picture. But if you only want to stay focused in the publishing business on where you're at, then and then just scale that, that's another way to look at it. So you have to make those decisions of where you're going. Make your 5 and 10 year outlook, which is really just imagination at that point, because sometimes that imagination gives you a good clear picture of where you want to go, and then you can see if this thing kind of is going to help you get there or not. Aside from the practical A/B testing that you'll do to determine if it's really profitable or not. Okay, good question. Next question. Paulina Beck. How do you analyze job applicants for job posting to see which you will interview? I just posted a job for a full charge accountant to join my team full time. The posting went live a few hours ago and I have already 4 people that applied. I want to know to review their application and see which ones are worth having an interview with and for which ones I will give a technical interview. Good question. So what I like to do on all hiring stuff is I like to make it hard for people to apply. Don't make it easy for them, because otherwise you're just going to have to be sorting through a lot of garbage to try to get to the people who actually really care about getting the job. So especially nowadays with all this unemployment stuff that people have been on, because a lot of times there's all sorts of rules on how they have to apply for so many jobs. So I'm seeing a lot of people that are dealing with just people sending them resumes. Oh, look, we're getting all this response. And then when they set up interviews and things like that, people just don't show up and people don't do anything because they don't need to. They just had to submit something. So make it hard for people. Don't make it easy is my suggestion, because that's probably who you want on your team. Someone who will go through the process. So first things first, I would recommend get them to some sort of technical, as you mentioned, technical interview. Technical something. Make them do something technical, whether it's like a skills test or it's it doesn't have to be long. It can literally be like 5 minutes, like something super easy in terms of time commitment, but just the fact that they have to do something and get it back to you by a particular point in time, that's like the best test you can give right away. Because if they can't even do that, like in terms of just get it back to me in 24 hours or 40 hours or whatever you two agree to, and they blow that deadline, they're not going to get any better once you hire them. So that's a good thing to do. Give everybody the same test. The other thing that you could do, which I've done in the past, if you have access to this sort of thing, those personality tests like Culture Index, DISC, all those ones, Predictive Index. There's like a million of them. Colby, it doesn't matter which one you want to use, but get a picture of who you want in your head on one of those tests. And then if you can buy, a lot of times, the Culture Index you for sure can, I don't know about the others, you can buy kind of an unlimited use for a particular job session, like testing, and then you can just make people take that right away. And then that kind of satisfies the hey, they have to do something in order to apply, because it'll take them 5 or 10 minutes to fill out the little thing. And then not only that, but then you kind of get this little analysis of who they are, what they are, and does their personality type actually fit the job that they're applying for. Unfortunately, people don't necessarily realize what they're good at, what they're not good at, what they like, what they don't like, and they just start applying for stuff. And sometimes it takes us to kind of be like, nah, you should probably be in a different line of work, or at least not with me. So yeah, so that's it. So there's 2 options there. The other thing I would recommend with hiring, if possible, for anybody who's listening, hire more than one person at a time. Because if you're probably going to do it wrong, you're going to work really hard to try to get the right person, and it's a good possibility you're not going to do it right. You're not going to, not that you could have done it any different, but it's just that's the odds. I don't know what the exact statistics are, but they're really not great, even for big giant professional organizations, for getting top performers on their first try. So if you can afford it and you can kind of set up a structure, hire 2 or 3 people for like the first 90 days with the idea that I'm going to give it my all for these 2 or 3 people and see if I can get them to do it, what I need them to do. And then odds are 1 or 2 of them are going to just fall to the wayside anyway and aren't going to be what you want. And you're going to want to get rid of them and tell them that. Like, this is like a probationary thing. I've hired you. We've got everybody working, and I want everyone to succeed. But there's going to be a review in 90 days. And if you don't meet these metrics, you're done. So that's a really good way to save time, because a lot of times what people do is they do it kind of in a linear fashion where they'll hire a person, work with them for 90 days, realize they're not right, get rid of that person, hire another person, and then probably also restart the hiring process. So that takes more time. So they could go through like a whole year and only looked at like 3 people. And then maybe they're lucky if they got 1 some point in that year, where if you do it in the 90-day compressed time, you'll be done in 90 days. And you'll have somebody who's at least good, and maybe you end up with 2 people who are good, in which case, great, you've got 2. And then all you need is something for them all to do. Of course, that's the other side of the equation. But odds are you won't be that lucky to get 2. Especially if you try to, you're probably only going to get 1. All right, cool. I'm going through these fast because there's a lot. Brad Coleman, what are some things I can do to create excitement on a line of apparel about to be released? Any out-of-the-box type ideas, or how do you let your audience know it's coming? I am Carbon Thread Designs, an automotive apparel lifestyle brand, and I'm releasing a new line of apparel over the next month. What are some things I can do to let my audience know it will be available for purchase soon? Create excitement, exposure, etc. Great question. So what I like in terms of getting things out there is I try to connect a couple different things. I try to connect whatever I'm doing to current events. Like, so whatever's hot and whatever people are talking about right now, like how does my thing connect to that? How do I get involved with that? So we had this silly big hot dog thing. Can you see this picture back there, right there? See back corner? See, that's me with the gigantic hot dog, big hot dog. That whole business was built on PR and connecting the big hot dog to whatever was going on in the entire world. Like just goofy tangential connections to things, and like telling people like, this is what it is, and then people would laugh about it and then they pass it around. The idea is getting people who are already talking about something to kind of start talking about your thing because it's somehow related. And it doesn't have to be big global things. If you're in a particular industry, then connect your thing to a particular industry. That works just as well. Same thing goes with influencers, right? So if you don't have a huge following, but you have access to an influencer or a couple influencers that do have big followings that you can give product to and get them to, talk about what you're doing. Anybody who has access to an audience that might accept merchandise for Talkie Talk is a good it's a good connection to have. Now that's a whole business model and a strategy in itself, which you could probably take your business from startup to wherever, to the moon. So that's something you can start building on, and it's not going to be a short-term thing. It could be a long-term strategy from now forever. So keep that in mind. So basically connect up with things that are going on in your industry so that people associate your product with whatever is exciting going on. And secondarily, use of influencers and giving them product and getting them to talk about what you're doing. Get yourself on podcasts. Podcasts are great. Everybody's trying to produce podcasts. So my recommendation is don't produce a podcast yourself. Let other people do the work for you. Just get yourself on as many of those as possible. And and then that's about it. Know your audience too, I guess, is a really good recommendation when you're marketing. Don't market to everybody. The more specific you can get to your audience, and that you know that these are the people who will actually spend money, not theoretically, but they'll actually spend money for you, on your product, that's where you want to go. So good. Okay, next question. Chris Sadat, what is the best and fast reputable payment processing company to use for your business? We are looking for a payment processing software platform company to work with that works well with processing payments quick, fast, and easy. A company that won't hold your money hostage for a week before going into your bank account. Cool. Good question. Let's see. My familiarity with this is limited. I've used Stripe in the past, and I've been happy with Stripe. They're a little bit, I think, kind of expensive in some cases, but it's a pretty standard platform with a kind of a standard rate structure, and you do get the money relatively quickly, I believe, if I remember correctly. And then I've also used First Data, which is, of course, the big gorilla. And they do have some good online platforms and stuff as well. Their First Data, at least when I was using them a few years ago, they were less good in terms of the turnaround time. But it's one of those things that's like, if you're with the big gorilla, you know that they're going to do what they do, and they're not going to, it is what it is kind of situation. So Stripe, First Data. Let me think, who else have I used in the past? Bill.com I've used, and I think those are the only three I've ever used my whole career. So yeah, hopefully that's somewhat helpful. Robin Turpin. When starting a business, do you think it's necessary to have a social media presence? In-person interactions are much more comfortable for me. And then I'm going to read the elevator pitch, which I don't usually read, but this gives us context. As an artist, I help people feel moments of calm through my oil paintings or of sunsets. Okay. All right, Robin. When starting a business, do I think it's necessary for a social media presence? No, I do not think it's necessary. I don't think anything is necessary when doing anything. That's kind of like maybe the key to my philosophical approach to life. Nothing is necessary. Only what works is necessary. So if your business doesn't revolve around social media, or if you don't, like, that's not your thing, then figure out a different way to do what you need to do. Like, usually the reason people have social media is because they want to reach out to an audience, and then they want to engage with that audience, and then they want to bring that audience, eventually through their sales process to get them to buy something. But you don't have to do it that way. Especially, I mean, you're talking about the art world, right? So I don't, the art world, which I have quite a bit of experience in, is a lot about PR, right? It's a lot about engaging with an audience, not necessarily in terms of like the way that you would on a social media type interaction, but perhaps in a more formalized, various like gallery settings or shows, live events, right? Like that's the best way. Again, to engage with an audience. Maybe you only engage with people in a live setting. Maybe you engage with people through, maybe your whole concept is through a network of one-to-many sales channel partners, right? So instead of spending a whole bunch of time on Facebook goofing around, like trying to like build an audience, which works, obviously, but maybe in this particular case, maybe you work through channel partners who you're going to create relationships with, and you're going to spend all your time trying to build those relationships, people who can help promote you and help push you forward along the way. So like, there's no definite rules on how to do anything. There's only best guesses, and then utilizing the resources that you have and taking into account how you actually operate, and putting all those pieces together. That's one of the things that always bothers me, kind of like in sort of the business book realm, is the business book realm makes a lot of assumptions about that everybody who reads the book has all of the exact kind of background, history, personality traits, family connections, blah, 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 all these things that the person who wrote the book did. And the market, and this is the big one, and the market is exactly the way that it was when that person who wrote the book is. So you can't read all that stuff literally. You have to read it. You have to take out the pieces that work. You have to marry that up with what your exact situation is, what your exact circumstances are. And I use the word circumstances in a positive way. Like this is all the pieces that I have to work with, and then I complete the puzzle with the pieces I have. Actually, that's kind of a good metaphor. If you're putting a puzzle together, the book assumes that you have all the same puzzle pieces that are on the picture on the box. But in reality, you don't have those same puzzle pieces. You have your own puzzle pieces that fit together and make a similar but different picture. Maybe that's a good way to think about it. So, cool. So think about that a little bit. I'm going to think about that too. Good question, though. Rohit Gupta. I have a business idea and done some research. Now I'm not sure which direction to go into. That's the question. I'm thinking of designing the glove as I have done research to cover the basics, but not sure if this is my next step. I need a lot more details on this one. I would be happy, Rohit, to help you with answer these questions, but I need a little bit more details. It sounds like you're making some sort of glove product. You've done some research, and where to go next? I don't know. Based on the information I have no idea what to say. I guess I would say make a spreadsheet outlining the costs of the glove versus what you would sell it for and what the market would potentially pay for it. Reach out or ask the question in more detail, and then I'll happily provide a better answer. Next question. Christopher Joseph. Is a pre-launch strategy recommended for a software product still in development? And do you have any tips, resources to better learn how to create a proper pre-launch strategy? I'm currently in alpha testing with a small group of target customers for my software tool for content creators and streamers. I was recommended by my CTO to do a pre-launch to build hype, continue gauging interest, and expand our email list. She says we could do this pre-launch before the product is finalized. We are thinking along the lines of coming soon landing page with an enter your email to stay in the know. I would like to know your thoughts on how and when a pre-launch strategy should be executed. Thank you in advance. Christopher Joseph, right? I said your name? Christopher, that is a great question as well. So first things first, I would say stay focused as much as possible on creating a great product for your customers that you already have. You said you've got a small group of target customers. Stay focused on them. Make sure that you understand how your product creates value, how you're going to continue to drive the development of that in a more and more useful way for the customer. Number one, don't get distracted by anything else. Stay super focused on that. In tech, that's the name of the game. You know, if you don't have a good product, it's not going to go anywhere. So I'm glad that you're working with some customers and already working on that. And I'm glad you have a CTO helping you with that. That's great. As far as the pre-launch thing goes, you know, I don't know, I guess, is a good question. I think it depends on what the product is and who your target market is. Because if you're like a beta, it sounds like you're for content creators and streamers. So you're kind of like in a weird hybrids place. You're not really B2B because you're not selling to businesses, because content creators and streamers are usually small, single or few people operations. But you're also not selling to consumers because they're not just consuming; it's part of their business. So I guess what I would do in this particular case is I would try to expand my alpha testing people as I kind of rolled along. So like, let's say I had 5 people that I'm currently working with in this testing phase, and as we're building the product phase, and as it becomes more and more useful and stable, I would probably, the pre-launch strategy that I would use would not be in like a broad sense. It would be, again, focusing on the customer, would be like trying to expand that kind of alpha and then into the beta testing phase. And doing that kind of on a onesie, twosie basis initially. Like if you've only got a handful so far, you could probably do that same handful method, whatever you use to get the first few, till you get to like 100 or so. You know, and then at that point, you've got a lot of people who are kind of giving input. And then you can also use their networks, right? Because if they like it and they've been using it, that's the point where you go and you try to swim upstream through the people you're already connected to. So, I mean, as far as putting a landing page up that says coming soon and some basic info, great. Sure, yeah, for sure do that so you look like you're doing something. That's good. But I think your real strategy is going to come around how to utilize the networks of the people who are already using it successfully and letting them help get it out to the rest of the world. It's all about kind of building, again, those channel partners, kind of like in the the art question. You've got to build those channel partners because they're going to be the ones to help get it out there. Yeah, that's what I would do. And I don't think there's no proper pre-launch strategy. Again, there's no proper way to do anything. The only thing that's to do is what works. And how do you know what works? You test it. And you just start trying stuff, and then you don't get discouraged when the first thing doesn't work, because I guarantee the first thing won't work. Because if it does work, then you're going to be really confused on how to handle any other challenges that come up in your business or life. So I hope that for all of you, the first thing never works, because otherwise you will never be able to know how to solve a problem, because there's going to be a lot of problems along the way that you will have to solve. Cool. Good question. Bob Gugera, do I use one LLC for everything or have separate LLCs for different products and services? I'm about to launch my company. I need to file my LLC. However, I anticipate I will have at least one or two other unrelated products / companies that I will test this year. Should I file as a parent company LLC? At what point in the business development life cycle should a LLC be filed? And this looks like it's related to SAT math membership-based website. Okay, cool. Okay, great questions about legal structure, entity stuff. So I'm going to answer the last question first. At what point in the business development life cycle should an LLC be filed? You don't have to be like really stressed to get to the LLC. Like I got to get an entity set up. But then again, it's super cheap to do. And it kind of like starts you thinking in terms of a structure. And remember, even if you open an LLC, start an LLC, you can always file DBAs, which is doing business as. So like I've had situations where I opened an LLC to do one thing, and then that thing didn't work, but I still had the LLC, and there was no liability or any issues related to that LLC. So I just kind of started doing something else using that same entity, which already existed, so I didn't have to make another one. So it never hurts if you don't mind spending a few $100 and then dealing with the tax return stuff at the end of the year with your accountant. Just do it right away. Like start one at least, and then treat it properly. Open up a checking account in that company's name. Put money in the account, fund it, and then go. Now, if you're going to do this a little bit more bootstrapping and just want to start doing stuff, just do stuff. That's fine too. You can just start doing things. Just keep track of your expenses and just run it through, like, so that you've got a list of here's what I spent money on, because you can write all that stuff off. So you might as well take the tax advantages of it, and not just pay it out of pocket. Because remember, if you get a tax deduction on something, whatever taxes you would have paid is essentially like the government being your partner in that. Like, so if you spent $100 and I would have normally paid 40% in taxes on that $100, but because I spent it on a business venture, actually I only spent $60 because the government paid the other 40 because they give me a write-off. So it's a good way to make the government your partner when you keep track of your expenses and you deduct things. So don't forget about that. But yeah, if you that said, don't get over complicated with your LLC structures early on unnecessarily. So when we talk about parent companies, holding companies, management companies, like I'm doing this real estate deal right now where we're buying this portfolio of properties. And in that case, just to get that ball rolling, we ended up with 4 LLCs. One's like a holding company. The other is the general manager of the other company. Like they're all related in some way, but they all have different functions. And they kind of do that to protect from liability in the different potential places where liability would come up. One company just holds my financial interest in the other company. Like it's all kind of like that. But unless there's a really good reason to do that, like this is real estate, so it's pretty straightforward on how this is all going to go. So it's very easy to set up. But from an operating business or a new business, you might not know those things yet. So don't make it overcomplicated. Just start with one. That's fine. And I think that's probably the answer to the first question too. You don't need tons of. I would just start with one. And unless the products are truly different businesses, like where there's different sources of liability, or one of the things already has significant value, then maybe you want to split it off. Like if you had one thing that already was worth $1 million or $100,000 even, maybe then you want to say, okay, that thing says it's worth 100,000. This new thing is going to have a different type of liability associated with it. Meaning, like in this case, I sell stuff online, nothing's going to happen that's really anyone's going to sue me for. And on this thing over here, that business is about strapping babies to the top of cars so they can go for a ride. That's probably got a lot more liability associated with it than the online business. So we want to make sure those are separate. But if it's basically I sell this online or I sell that online, there's not a lot of difference in liability there. So you can keep it all under the same umbrella, especially if one thing is not overly valuable yet. Yeah, liability is an interesting thing because you just kind of think about worst case scenarios in each thing. And if the two things are very different than each other, then maybe that's where you split it off. But if you're all in testing phase and you're growing something, you could just test a whole bunch of things under the same umbrella and you're probably fine. Okay, Jordan Shaw. What is the best route for us to increase sales / users? We want to start advertising on YouTube as we believe the best return will come from YouTube, but we are also open to other suggestions. If perhaps outbound sales direct to businesses would yield a greater return. Our software has just hit the AppSumo marketplace. We wanted to go to market with AppSumo for exposure and feedback. We have used our software for our own business agency and believe it is a good tool for small business in general. Any industry with a sales or agent staff is great for our system. We need to figure out the best path to grow and sustain. Our software has been used by marketers in the past, but we want to essentially cut out the marketers and offer a complete marketing solution for businesses. Okay, well, good question. I guess what I'm confused about, is I think your product is for building funnels and for creating sales and leads. And you're asking basically how to load people into the funnel, right? I think that's what we're saying here. So your product builds as a sales funnel, sales funnel builder, right? And you want to have this complete suite of products, and you need to load people into the top of the funnel, which honestly is the hardest part in my opinion, for me personally anyway. So as such, you want to use YouTube ads to feed people into your funnel. That's what I think I understand is going on. So with that said, it's just going to be basically marketing math, right? Like our advertising math. How much can you buy? And it doesn't matter if it's YouTube or anything else. I don't have any other specific suggestions. I think YouTube is good if you're gonna run your ads and or connect with influencers that are kind of in the funnel online sales space. But if you're selling to businesses, yeah, I guess it depends on who you're selling to for me. Like you need to know who your audience is. I would need to know who your audience is. And then I'd have to make sure that wherever I'm advertising, I have the most concentration of those people who are in that market. And more importantly, not only in that market, but ready to buy. That's another thing with demographics that people always get confused about, or like I think that they overlook, they're not really confused, they just don't pay attention to it, is that it comes down to, are they ready to buy? How do I contact my customer at the point that he's ready to buy? Because if he's not ready to buy, even if he's potentially my customer, he's not going to buy anything, right? So you have to figure out not only kind of the demographics of your customer and where are they, but then how do I hit them with my message at the point where it's relevant to them at that moment, right? So yeah, I mean, I don't think I need an example of that. I think that's pretty clear. I think it is what it is. So I would say YouTube is great, or any other way that you load people into the top of your funnel is going to be fine. But I'd say be very cognizant of your of who your customer is and at what point they're most likely to purchase from you, and then you have to kind of recreate that over and over again through your various methods to get people into your funnel, so that hopefully if your funnel works, you work them through and then you get them sold. What is it called? ClickFunnels and Lead Pages and all these guys. ClickFunnels for sure. They've done a fantastic job of kind of creating a network effect in terms of how people are promoting their products are creating that kind of almost MLM style. Not that I'm a huge fan of MLM, because some of them are kind of shady, but some of them are actually really good. And mathematically, MLM is awesome, of course. So if you can kind of create those environments where people are helping you get the word out there, actually that's a really good point too. Is if you can get involved in any of those pay-per performance type referral networks, whatever, conjunction junction, all the not conjunction junction. That's the that's the what is conjunction junction? That's that little cartoon from like the 70s, right? Commission junction is what I was trying to say. Commission junction, any of those kind of like affiliate network sort of deals. That's a great way to sell products and get people involved when there's lots of people helping you sell. Okay, I gotta really start moving here. I'm gonna get through these. Belle Donovan, what is your best advice on how to get your product on the shelves of other small and medium businesses? We are an e-commerce business that supplies false lashes and magnetic lashes. We want to get back into the B2B space, and in particular nail salons, hairdressers, and beauty salons. We are currently doing sales coaching and are working through adding to our prospect list. In about 4 weeks, we'll be making our first contact and just wanted any tips, advice before we do. I think you're doing the right thing. If you're going to sell B2B, I mean, just good old-fashioned sales at that point is really what it's about. You can also start to get a little bit creative once you kind of know who your real target market is. For example, I have a friend who was kind of like in the kind of industrial supply business. He sold all sorts of cleaners and like toilet paper, like a big giant catalog of stuff that like companies would buy. And he knew who his target buyer was. And he once sent him like this little plastic toilet bowl with like toilet paper and stuff, and he sent it like a little package, like UPS or whatever. So it was something bigger than just like mail. And he said, and he put like $100 in there, and he was like, don't flush it down the toilet or something like that. And that $100 bill that he put in there that the guy just got to keep, if he didn't call him, he said, I'll pay you $100 basically to call me and let's talk about this. Don't flush it down the toilet. The guy called him because he kind of felt, I guess, indebted to him that he gave him $100. So he called him, and then they ended up being having a customer relationship with that company. So point is you can do creative stuff like that, but at the end of the day, it's all about volume. How do I make the contacts? How do I make a usable, memorable contact that I can create, build into a relationship? So you're doing the great work that you're doing, that the coaching. That's good. Kathy Lee Quach, finding the right person and creating the right processes to train them as my number 2. I've been in the mortgage and real estate industry for 20 years and have built a niche reputation for myself, so I don't have a problem generating business. What I need help with are finding the right people to delegate things off my plate, creating a workflow systems process where certain aspects can be broken off for delegation without sacrificing the integrity of the file, and 3, how to better pass on knowledge that can only be passed on through on-the-job knowledge, tricky credit income qualifying scenarios. I think you need an apprentice. I think you should I don't think it should be like immediately thought of as like I'm going to create all this stuff and then just hand it to somebody. And that's namely because of the third one, the industry knowledge, all the tricky stuff. I think that if you look at somebody and said, I'm going to make myself an apprentice type relationship where I'm not going to expect this person to really do anything when they walk in the door. I'm going to hire them on culture. I'm going to hire them on, commitment to where we're going with this company, all these things, and maybe some previous experience from like wherever. But at the end of the day, somebody who's super detail oriented can help you build all that on the fly, as opposed to trying to hand it off in like one ka-chunk. If you lower that expectation maybe of being able to just hand it in one big chunk and kind of think of it more as like a partner that you're going to train up. Now the risk to that, of course, is that you train them up and then they don't stick around. You waste a lot of time. So that's why the vetting and culture fit and making sure they're the right person really does fit. And one other quick recommendation on that is make sure you explain things clearly. I'm very bad at that. I have a tendency when I'm trying to get something off my plate to just shove it over there. I've heard a thing that said for every 1 hour that you replace, it might take you 40 hours to train somebody. So be prepared that take your time, slowly document and explain what you need somebody to do, and think through it with them so that they buy into it. Yeah, I think that's good. But yeah, I think an apprentice relationship might be great there. Heather Brockman, which is better for onboarding training, a private YouTube channel or Trainual? I'm in the process of redoing my onboarding and want to add training videos for all aspects of the SOP. I don't know if a private YouTube channel would be better or something more detailed such as Trainual would be better suited for a company wanting to get to franchise level. You know, it's look, the thing that you what do I say? The system that you use is the one. The best system to use is the one that you use, right? So like if whatever is easiest for you, and you're going to be able to put together. Of those two options, I probably would lean towards something like Trainual if you want to use Trainual or something like that. And the reason I say that is just because you can kind of like bring it all together into like, because then you can bring in other what do you call it, documentation and other, you know, flow charts and whatever else you might create down the line, put it all in an index, all that stuff. Trainual kind of does a good job of kind of putting all that stuff together. If you do a private YouTube channel, you can get all the videos up there, but you're still going to want to try to link it into some kind of like context, so it isn't just like a big giant list of videos, which as far as I understand, YouTube, that's really all it would be. Now, as far as delivering video, YouTube, of course, is the best. But I think from kind of contextual perspective, Trainual does a good job, or those types of things like Trainual do a good job of getting that all set up. And you're kind of building that from, especially if you want to go into like franchising, you want to keep that stuff super organized, super searchable. So having something to help do that is not a bad deal. Okay. Gabor, again, the last name, R-A-C-Z, Rex. I love it. Somebody tell me how to pronounce his name somehow. Send me an email or a text or something. What are some quick wins I can implement to increase our bottom line profitably, and how should I go about doing this in the long term? Throughout the past 2 years, I have been focused on growing our top line revenue, and this year we're on track to hit 1 million in sales. Awesome, congratulations. We've been profitable all the way, but I feel there's probably a lot of waste we could eliminate. Normally, I'm the sales guy, not the savings guy, so I'm not sure how to get started, as well as how to make constant awareness of our bottom line an integral part of how we do business. We currently have a full-time accountant who can get me any reports I need. Okay, so my first question is, are you profitable, like kind of like above the line, right? Like, are you profitable based on what you're selling? And like, what is your gross profit margin, I guess is sort of what I'm asking. If your gross profit margin is good, is high, and where you want it to be, that's the first step, right? So like, gross profit margin is high and good. Next thing down, okay, now we've got our overhead and all that sort of stuff. And if that area is not where you want it to be, why isn't it where you want it to be? So I think that that's usually where I kind of attack, because a lot of times that's where I find issues, is that like the holy grail of like M&A for me, mergers and acquisitions, is I can find a company where the above the line sort of stuff is like messed up, like, right, the actual direct production of the stuff is inefficient and could be made better, which then increases your profit, your gross profit margin, which then, you know, flows through to the bottom line, which increases your net profit margin at the bottom, or your earnings, or your operating income, however you want to say it. When you do that, like that's a great situation. Lots of times that isn't the situation. Most of the time on the production side of a product, especially from what I understand yours to be, it's usually probably somewhat okay. Usually the problem comes in that, like, hey, we're doing $1 million in sales. Our gross profit margin is 30%. We've got $300,000 to spend. We've got too many people in the office, and we have non-productive salespeople. We have like a fancy office that we don't need. Like, that's usually where people start burning up a lot of their money. So I would look at those things first. So I'd start maybe on your overhead level, your not your direct costs, but your overhead. And then if that's as tight as you can get it, then I would, and when I mean tight, I mean like efficient, right? Like I don't want you to go fire all your salespeople if all your salespeople are productive. But if you have salespeople, or if you want to get salespeople, for example, you can measure, are they productive or not. Same thing on your admin people. What is your expectation on how much volume your admin can do? Do they have more production capacity, and that's the problem? You're just not selling enough to support them, or are they inefficient in that they should be able to do more volume before you need to hire the second person? So maybe just get rid of the second person and then make the one person be more efficient through process changes or whatever. So yeah, I would kind of like really explore that operations level or that overhead level, and then if that's checking out, then I would go up to the direct cost, assuming that the direct cost is probably okay already. Robin Turpin, time management. What time management system or process do you use and why? I want to be as productive as I can be, and I know there is software and a good old-fashioned day planners. What are you using today to stay efficient and manage your time? Thanks so much. Cool. What I do is I actually just use a Google Calendar. I have all my standing meetings that are scheduled, and they're the same every week. They don't change. Like that's what they are, so I know that's there. And then I actually block out time. Like I don't just like the empty white spaces that would be on the calendar. I actually block out time to do stuff. Like, so if there's something I know I have to do, like where I have to sit down and do something, or I have to read something or whatever, I'll actually carve out time. So I basically keep my to-do list on my calendar. So when I have something to do, I don't just put it on the list and then the list gets longer and longer and longer. I actually put the to-do on my calendar and I block out that amount of time that I think I need to complete it, so that way then when I'm going through my day, there, now it's my time to work on this, and I treat that just the same as any other meeting or anything else that I would be doing, so that it's a serious block of time to get this done, and I have only this much time to do it. It can't drag on forever. That's my method. Maybe other people have got better ideas, but that's how I do it. Okay, Michael Wilding. I have a ticket sales website currently in Canada. How can I get things back to normal? I need to be able to communicate with our clients, see how we can help them. Are there programs specific to the events industry that we can take advantage of, or help promoters take advantage of to help everyone through COVID? Are there programming changes we need to do to help accommodate this? I have a ticket sales website similar to Ticketmaster, and with COVID, ticket sales have plummeted. I want to see how I can better serve my clients. That's a good question. So in the ticket business, Morgan Denton is also in the ticketing business in Texas. And I would recommend that maybe you guys connect, because she's been in the business and dealing with that sort of stuff as well. And so there might be some sort of experience share or whatever that the two of you can figure out of how to work together. She's actually been as far as I understand, she's been growing quite well and has been coming out of COVID fairly strong as things in the US have started to open up. And so I would recommend that connection to you. I don't have any specific experience beyond that I think is helpful to this. Other than, if you know that you're going to be opening soon and everyone else is just sitting around twiddling their thumbs waiting to open, this is your opportunity to make all those contacts. I mean, I guess this is probably the real recommendation, because this is what Morgan and I talked about. This is your opportunity to make all those contacts. If you know your industry is coming back, and this goes for anybody who was affected by COVID, and things have kind of slowed down and everyone in your industry is just kind of fumbling along waiting for something to happen, take it seriously. Start connecting with everybody now in prep for when everything gets back to normal, because it will get back to normal, some version thereof. And it might happen very quickly. It might happen overnight. And so if you're making all those contacts and reaching out to everyone that you should be reaching out to so that you're set up for when that happens, do it. Make a plan of what you have to do today to set things up. so that you can move forward when everything opens, because then you're going to be ahead of everybody. You're ahead of the wave of everybody coming back online. That's my kind of general recommendation. Sarah Hamilton, how do I build loyalty with the team? I own a female-run and operated barbershop for male clients, mostly. And over the years, I have had countless barbers screw me over in all kinds of areas. The way they talk to me, the way they won't follow processes, they've quit on me, and I can't seem to find a solution. This industry is very unique, and I'm looking for any and all ideas to make sure that I am being the right leader to keep people and grow. How do I know if I am the problem and I'm not doing my job right, or is it just people will be people? Good question. There's a lot going on there. So from a culture perspective, I would say make sure you're hiring the right people. I know sometimes we hire people just to put butts in seats, or rather a butt in a seat, so that they'll do whatever we need them to do. But make sure you're hiring for culture, so that right off the bat, if somebody's kind of a bad apple and you kind of sort of can kind of figure that out through your hiring process, it's better to know that now versus later. It's better to leave a seat empty many times than put the wrong person in it. As far as the doing your own job and building loyalty, as I know a little bit about your business, and I would say that you're very clear on who you are. Your business is very clear on what it is. So people that are not connected to that and they're just looking for a job, help them realize who they are, and that you really do only hire people that are not just looking for a job, but people who want to be part of the team. You can also build growth opportunities for them. Make sure that it isn't just this is all you're going to get out of me, and then for them to leave and they have to go somewhere else. Create those growth paths for them, so that they can see how your vision for your company connects to their vision for what they want and where they're going in their lives, and that you've got a path planned out for them. I mean, obviously there's companies that, as part of their personnel reviews and stuff, actually do planning and what do you call it, like quarterly goal setting and everything for the individuals just as much as they do the company. So all of that sort of stuff really is real meaty stuff that you can do to kind of build great culture and build great loyalty, because you've now connected your business and the work they do with you to kind of the outcomes that they want in their lives, and you've created that connection for them. Yeah, so that's what I would say. Liv Gruber, what are other methods you suggest reaching out to clients, potential partners, businesses besides a cold email? My business is Cellar Door Plants. It is an online plant store, but we're looking to sell our pre-potted plants to more. I would say if your margins will support it, another campaign that you could do is if you're selling to businesses, which I think you might have to in order to get enough of a sales volume to be able to make this work. But you could just cold call, you could just call up businesses and tell them how great it is. In the art business, which I referenced in the past, there was a company that basically you would pay a monthly subscription to, and then they would change out the art on the walls so that there's always something new going on in the office space, whatever. You could potentially do something like that with plants. That would be cool. And then that raises your lifetime value of your client as opposed to a one-time purchase. Now you've got them on a subscription model, which has way more value from an enterprise perspective, as well as just kind of an operating business perspective. So from a business model perspective, you may want to look at that, because if you can't afford to make the sale work based on the margin and the amount that everybody normally spends, then you can't grow the business. So I would ask basically, what is your profit margin? How much does your customer generally spend? And then we'd have to look at and determine what methods fit that model. You're not going to be able to advertise during the Super Bowl, probably, right? But maybe there's probably something in between cold emails and the Super Bowl that will still mathematically make sense. That's kind of an important note. Check the math before you begin. Everybody, that goes for everybody. Check the math before you begin. you should have a rough idea of what it costs you per impression or whatever when you're going to start doing some campaign, whether it's cold calls or whatever. You're going to know how much it costs you to make a call. You're going to know how much it costs you to send a cold email. You know how much it's going to cost you to run a YouTube advertisement or whatever. Divide all that out, make some assumptions on conversion, and if it doesn't come out positive based on what you're charging for your product and what your average ticket sale is, then make a different choice, because otherwise you're not going to come out ahead. And honestly, with advertising too, if you're not, I like to try to shoot for like 5 times return on advertising or marketing stuff, just because I try to build a huge margin in there. And then of course, when reality and you start to work the math, it comes down from there. But if you're just breaking even, like, oh, like if I do this, maybe I'll just break even on this, there's probably a better path that's going to be more likely to succeed. Okay. Lauren Saints. What items should I make sure to include in a partnership agreement? Does AO have a template? I'm opening an Etsy store and my partner and I have verbally agreed on things and are working on a written agreement. I don't know if AO has a standard partnership agreement, but I'm glad that you're thinking that way. Great idea to write it down with your partner. So my recommendation is probably, if AO doesn't have one available, ask Sean. I don't know if it does or not, but if AO doesn't have one, I would just like go on LegalZoom or something like that, or even just something that you could grab for free to start with, and then just edit it. If you're not like, you know, I'm not a lawyer. If you want to really get fancy, you can definitely hire a lawyer and have them put a formal partnership agreement together. I am doing that, and I've done that many times before, but sometimes that's just added expense at a point when you don't really know what you're just starting a business, so you don't want to spend tons of money on legal work, and you don't even know where you're going or where you're at. So it's kind of a catch-22 of like, you want to do the work ahead of time so that if there is a legal problem, you've covered it. But at the same time, you don't want to like drown in legal fees just to get started. And then at the end of the day, it doesn't turn into anything anyway. So I would start with personally, I would start with something basic that clearly outlines as much as I can think of with me and my partner of who's going to do what and how it's all going to go. If you use something from like LegalZoom or something like that, it probably has a buy-sell agreement stuff. Like if one person wants to leave, what's the process for that happening? All that probably has all that in kind of some standard language that you can edit. Remember, legally, like editing stuff is fine. It's like just because you're not a lawyer, you can just make it make sense to you, and then you should be good. Start there. That's a good place to start. Corey Stevens. Is our ideal client someone who is similar to ourselves? I'm in direct sales, distributor of water ionizer. I'm looking to share the opportunity more than I am wanting to share the product. I'm ready to build a team. I'm wanting to build a team. I'm currently going through the persona worksheet, feeling a little bit of resistance when filling it out. So it sounds like you're wanting to build a team to help you sell as opposed to sell the product. I'm looking to share the opportunity more than I'm wanting to share the product. So this makes me think that it's network marketing, which is fine. But I would say then yes, you want someone who's more similar to yourself. If you were just selling the product, I would say, what's the product? But if you're trying to build like a culture of salespeople, then you're going to want to look for people who are like yourself, because that's, if you're doing a good job, they're going to do a good job. So you're not really selling. You're more building like if you were hiring all these people yourself, you'd be, hiring them yourself, and you build a culture. So think of it more like a business. Your customers, in this case, is sort of like your business. And last, Zach Knock. How do you start a training program for employees? What are the bare bones structure needed for a successful program? My company, Diamond State Technology, specializes in working with access control, cameras, automation, and security systems for both residential and commercial applications. The reason why I'm asking this question is I'm growing rapidly and I need guidance on how to build a 6-month training program for my technicians. Yes. So I would say, in a nutshell, if you don't have all of your processes already documented, that's a good place to start, because if you document your processes just to begin with, then you need to know how to train them. I think JT at the last event, I think, said about strap a video camera to yourself and then do the stuff, and now you have video of everything. Everyone remember, when we talk about documenting processes, it doesn't mean you got to sit there and write it all out, although that's helpful, but people learn different ways. So using video to like do specific tasks and showing people how they do that, how you do that, is just as good of documentation as anything else. And then yeah, and then honestly, if you get it all loaded into something like Trainual or something like that, Trainual is great for kind of, again, laying all that out and getting it organized. It's really just a matter of kind of going through those steps of thinking, like, if I'm the person, what are the steps that I need to do, and then following through on it. We can go into more detail together at another point, but I think I'm all the way through this list, and I'm out of time. So I appreciate everybody's questions. I hope that some of them were helpful. I felt a little bit rushed there at the end, so I apologize for that. But otherwise, reach out to me, reach out to Sean with anything else that, as things come up. We're all here to help you guys, and it's great to see you all. So enjoy the rest of your Friday, and have a good weekend. Talk to you later.